I brought my daughter's favorite cake to her house early on her birthday. In the hopes that her face would light up the way it did as a young girl, I smiled and knocked on the door. However, she looked quite annoyed when she opened it, as like she didn't want to see me. Without even meeting my eyes, she mumbled, "Oh, it's you." I can still smell the chocolate ganache and almond cake I brought to Elena's house that afternoon. I had saved up 3 months of my retirement funds to purchase the small French pastry masterpiece that she cherished on her 43rd birthday. I didn't actually have 2,200 pesos, but I was happy to spend them in order to see her smile. I was dropped off in front of the mansion I had assisted in financing 5 years prior by the cab. A 3-story home with an infinity pool and a view of the ocean in Puerto Vallarta's nicest area. I used my money of 1,800,000 pesos to cover the down payment. Over the course of my 45 years as a university professor working overtime and tutoring on the weekends, I had saved money, penny by penny. Holding a small silver package in one hand and the cake in the other, I rang the bell while straightening my turquoise dress, which was new for the occasion. A pearl necklace that had belonged to my mother was inside. I thought about 3 generations of strong ladies. What a beautiful legacy to leave behind. Elena's face didn't light up the way I had intended when the door opened. She hardly looked at me before turning back to the phone she was holding. She whispered, "Oh, it's you," and moved aside to let me in. As if I were just another delivery, there was no embrace or kiss. "My beloved, happy birthday," I said, making an effort to sound enthusiastic. "I brought a special small gift, and your favorite cake." Elena sighed deeply, as though having me around was a hardship she had to bear. "Place it on the table in the kitchen. I have to end this call." I placed the cake gingerly on the counter after making my way alone to the Italian marble kitchen, which I had given them as a gift when they were renovating the property. I could see my 11-year-old grandkids, the twins, playing in the pool with the swimming instructor through the window. They were completely unaware of my presence. I felt like a stranger entering a place where I was obviously not welcome as I stood there and listened to the echo in the deserted house. Elena entered the kitchen 15 minutes later. As usual, she looked lovely with faultless makeup, manicured nails, and neatly dyed hair. 8 years ago, I financed an aesthetic clinic for her, which covered all of this. In order to realize her dream of becoming an entrepreneur, she needed 350,000 pesos. My apartment served as collateral for a debt that I never paid back. "So, did you come just to drop off the cake, or are you staying for dinner as well?" she asked, opening the refrigerator and taking out a bottle of sparkling water. Her voice was icy, and it sliced like a dagger. I forced myself to swallow, trying not to show how disappointed I was. "I thought we might be able to hang out on your birthday. We haven't seen each other in almost 2 months." "Well," she said, taking another look at her phone. "I have plans later, actually. I'm going to La Marea for supper with Marcelo. Only the 2 of us." Her third husband was Marcelo, a man who oddly continually needed my financial assistance for pressing undertakings and who lived off of hazy investments. 60,000 pesos for a fictitious import company that couldn't wait was the last one, which was only 3 weeks ago. I had withdrawn money out of my medical savings. I tried to conceal the pain in my voice as I responded, "I understand. Perhaps tomorrow we might eat lunch." After rolling her eyes, Elena turned to face me. Her expression was tight, as though she had been suppressing something for a while. She pointed to the tall stools surrounding the kitchen island and said, "Mom, we need to talk." I obliged, feeling a knot form in my stomach, and said, "Sit down." That tone seemed familiar to me. She used the same one when she was younger, before purposefully saying something hurtful to try me. She started by slowly rotating the glass of water between her fingers and said, "I've been thinking a lot lately about birthdays, about life, about what would really make me happy." I tried to seem encouraging by nodding. Of course, tell me anything you want, my love. Perhaps I can be of use in some way. Elena stared me in the eyes and put the glass down with a dull thud. I was completely shivered by what I saw there. It wasn't love, not even a brief annoyance. It was outright disdain. She spoke slowly and cruelly, saying, "The one thing I'd really like as a birthday gift is for you to just disappear from my life. I would rather you died. The world came to a stop." The room's air was drawn out. My throat tightened as I attempted to speak. I felt like I had been hit in the chest by someone. What all I could mutter was, "You heard me," she added, her tone now purposefully icy. "Mom, I'm over you." My hands started to shake uncontrollably as I grew weary of your incessant calls, unexpected visits, and persistent meddling in my life with your out-of-date counsel and intolerable emotional neediness. 44 years of age? I have been her mother for 43 years. Furthermore, I never once thought I would hear my only daughter say such things. With tears starting to well up, I managed to add, "Elena, I'm your mother. I did everything for you. For you, I gave up everything." She said, "Exactly," and rose off the stool. "You're suffocating me because of this. With you around all the time, I can't breathe. I require room. I must be free. I must go about my life free from your demands and emotional turmoil." With the candles still in the box ready to be lighted, I gazed at the birthday cake. Hugs, laughing, and memories shared were all gone like smoke, just like everything I had hoped for that day. "But Elena," I tried again, "all I want is to be near you, to be involved in your life. You are everything to me." "That's precisely the issue," she said, crossing her arms. "The fact that you only have me." "Take care of yourself and stop bothering me." With my legs shaking so violently that I thought I may fall, I got up from the stool. I reached for the little package containing the pearl necklace and my pocketbook. The cake would remain. Even if their mother didn't like it, perhaps the twins would. I whispered, "After everything I've done for you, I can't believe you're saying this to me." Everything you did." She gave a mocking laugh. "Every action you took, Mom, was motivated by your desire to feel important and in charge of my life. However, I am no longer a child, and I do not require your smothering. Every step I took toward the door cost me years of my life." I looked around one final time at the entrance, expecting to get a glimpse of the precious young girl I had reared with so much love, some remorse in her eyes. All I observed, however, was impatience, a desire for me to depart, so she could continue living her life without the burden I seemed to represent. I said, "Happy birthday, Elena," and left carefully, shutting the door behind me. As she watched me leave that sunny afternoon, my daughter had ignited a spark within me that had lain dormant for decades, but she was unaware of it. A flame of renewal rather than self-destruction. The cab dropped me off in front of my modest 2-bedroom apartment in the heart of the city, which I had purchased 20 years ago with the proceeds from the sale of the family home following the death of my husband. I staggered inside, dropped my handbag, and fell upon the shabby couch. It's the same couch where I held Elena when she was a newborn, where I told her stories before bed each night, and where I dried her tears after every setback. Her words seemed like a nasty refrain in my head. That you would die. As a birthday present, my own daughter had wished for my demise. Breathing became difficult due to the physical discomfort which felt like an oppressive weight on my chest. I spent the entire night reliving every second, every sacrifice, and every peso I had spent on her over the previous 40 years. I worked extra hours at the university to pay for specialized therapies, that Elena's insurance wouldn't cover when she was diagnosed with severe asthma at the age of 5. I sold the wedding necklace my husband gave me to acquire the 18,000 pesos needed for consultations and medication. I mortgaged this very flat to pay the 250,000 pesos required when daughter was 16 and wanted to take part in an exchange program to the United States. She had given me a big embrace at the airport and said, "Thank you, Mommy." Words that suddenly seemed to belong to an other life or person. You're just the best mom in the world. During Elena's 3 major changes at university from law to architecture to business, I made my payments each semester without any issues. Almost 480,000 pesos in total. Money I made by foregoing any personal life I might have had in order to teach extra lessons on the weekends and holidays. At the city's finest hotel, she married her first husband in a lavish ceremony attended by 300 people. I paid 420,000 pesos for everything. The orchestra gourmet banquet imported flowers and luxury attire. Glistening in her princess gown, she had declared, "Mom, this is the happiest day of my life." After 2 years of divorce and a second, even more lavish wedding that ended less than 3 years later, the couple said, "And it's all thanks to you." The current husband, Marcelo, followed. 220,000 pesos went toward the 3-story house, the cosmetic clinic, and the fancy car I helped pay for after the old one broke down. The twins attend bilingual private schools, which cost 48,000 pesos a semester. I began doing the calculations at sunrise. I discovered an old box in which I had kept all of my receipts, transfer slips, and contracts that I had ever signed. Because of habit, not mistrust. The habits of a retired math professor never go away. I started writing down every amount, date, and justification while seated at the kitchen table and sipping a cup of cold tea that I didn't feel like drinking. I was astounded by the total. 43 years and more than 800,000 pesos. I spent about 5 million pesos on my daughter's pleasure. And to learn that her biggest desire was for me to pass away. As I looked at those data, an odd thing happened. My nighttime stabbing agony started to change into something else. It was a crystalline clarity I had never known before, not anger, though there was anger. A profound realization that I had been deceived for decades by someone who viewed my love as a resource rather than a sacred connection. Where would I be now if I had used those almost 5 million pesos to better myself, to travel, study, more, purchase a better home, take care of my health, and save for a decent retirement? Definitely not in this small flat, squandering the last of my diminishing pension, delaying medical care to continue supporting a daughter who wanted me dead. I did something I had never done before at 6 in the morning. I blocked Elena's number when I answered the phone. Marcelo's was then blocked by me, then all the numbers that were connected to her family. Despite its modest size, the gesture had significant symbolic meaning. It was my first self-preservation action in 40 years. After taking a long bath and dressing in my finest clothes, a pantsuit that I wore infrequently to save money, I left the house with a specific goal, one that for the first time in years did not involve my daughter. The bank is the first stop. Elena and I had a joint emergency account at the same bank into which I frequently placed small sums of money in case something unexpected happened in her life. The account balance at that time was 180,000 pesos. Doña Carmen, good morning. Mr. Ortega, the branch manager who had known me for years, gave me a cordial welcome. How can I assist you right now? I responded with a composure that even startled me. I would like to close joint account number 4N522678891. Are you certain? Checking the computer, he cautioned. That account has a considerable balance. Yes, without a doubt, I said steadily, signing the documents. Please move the entire amount to my personal account. I had a peculiar sensation of power when I saw those 180,000 pesos come back into my own account. I hadn't felt such power in decades. And that was just the start. The real estate financing office is the next destination. In addition to providing the down payment for Elena and Marcelo's purchase of the beachside property, I also agreed to serve as the mortgage guarantor. That implied that I would be held accountable if they were unable to pay. However, it also meant that I was legally entitled to the property. Mrs. Ramirez, the loan officer, smiled and said, "Doña Carmen, what has brought you here today?" I clarified, "I would like to go over the conditions of the mortgage in which I am listed as a guarantor. I must be fully aware of my rights and responsibilities." I recalled the day I signed those forms as she searched for them. Elena had shed happy tears. "I'm grateful, Mom. You are our angel of protection." She had given me a firm hug and whispered, "I love you so much." In addition, Marcelo expressed his gratitude to me and assured me that they would never fail to make a payment. Mrs. Ramirez held a big packet in front of me and stated, "Here is all the documentation. If the primary holders are unable to make the payments, you are liable as a guarantor. However, if you think they won't be able to meet their responsibilities, you also have the right to take possession of the property." "Exactly," I said, going over each page with great care. "If I were to exercise my guarantor rights, what would happen next? You would have to demonstrate that there is a default risk or that there have been substantial delays already," she clarified. Mrs. Ramirez was unaware that Marcelo had lately lost a significant sum in a bad venture, and they had missed their most recent mortgage payment. Elena had unintentionally told me this information the week before. She nonchalantly provided this information, presumably anticipating that I would help, as I often did. I gathered copies of all the crucial documents and whispered, "Perfect." And if I'd like to begin that procedure, Mrs. Ramirez gave me a curious look while maintaining her professionalism. "If you would like, I can set up a meeting with our legal department." "Please do." I had a weird feeling of lightness when I left the workplace, like I was hovering above the sweltering city pavements. I had lived my entire 43-year life for Elena. To provide her the life she had always desired, I had given up everything I had, including my dreams, money, time, and health. And the outcome? As a birthday present, she wished me dead. My next destination was Horizontes Nuevos, a travel firm that specializes in senior new, starts a place I hadn't been to in years. For years, I had held on to one of their brochures, secretly hoping for opportunities that never seemed to materialize. "Good afternoon." I was greeted by Lucia, a young advisor, who asked how I could help. I sat down in the chair in front of her desk and said, "I saw your program on retirees living abroad. I want all the details about how a 74-year-old woman can move to Spain and start a new life." The days that followed were a whirlwind of feelings and covert planning. I woke up every morning feeling a mixture of pain, resolve, and hope, something I hadn't experienced in a long time. It was as though I had just awoken from a protracted daze in which I had lived just to satisfy my daughter's demands. At last, I was living for myself now. My phone kept ringing on Tuesday. Elena was the one. I didn't answer the phone. She made 5 more calls and left progressively agitated messages. "I need to talk to you, Mom. Are you all right, Mom? Why don't you respond? We need you to watch the twins after their school presentation on Thursday. Mom." I'm beginning to worry, Mom. I didn't miss the irony. Not because she missed me or was concerned about my welfare, but because she needed something from me. The same woman who had hoped for my death as a birthday present was now concerned that I was not returning her calls. My long-standing friend and neighbor Dolores paid me a visit on Wednesday. A woman in her 70s who had quietly seen all the sacrifices I had made for Elena over the years. "Carmen," she murmured while enjoying a cup of coffee in my living room, "you appear different. Has something taken place?" I told her everything, every detail of the arrangements I was making, every hurtful phrase from Elena's birthday. Dolores listened silently, tears slowly welling up in her eyes. When I was done, she whispered, "My God, Carmen. After everything you've done for Elena, I can't believe she said something so hurtful." I clarified that she stated it as if it were the most natural thing in the world, which was the most upsetting aspect, as though I were merely an annoyance that needed to be eliminated from her life. "And will you actually be traveling to Spain?" "Yes," was my emphatic response. "I already purchased the ticket. Next week, I'm going to leave." Dolores held my hands tenderly. "You are aware of my whole backing, aren't you? Elena did something that cannot be forgiven." I lowered my voice and said, "There's something else. I have a very special task that will require your assistance." I told her my whole strategy. For a time at least, I wanted Elena to think I was dead. The person who would discover my vacant flat and the parting note I intended to leave behind would be Dolores, who would be my collaborator. With a sly smile, Dolores whispered, "It's brilliant. At last that unappreciative girl will realize what it's like to lose you. Will you assist me?" "I will, of course. I believe it's exactly what Elena needs to wake up," the speaker said. I spent that evening writing the most significant letter of my life, the one that would permanently alter everything. To make sure it said exactly what I intended to express, I wrote and revised every word. I started, "Elena, my beloved. I've chosen to fulfill your request that your birthday vanish from your life. I'll be long gone by the time you get this letter, starting the life I ought to have led decades ago, rather than giving up all for you." For hours on end, I kept writing, recording every penny I had spent on her, every sacrifice I had made, and every chance I had lost by always being there for her. However, the letter was instructive rather than resentful. I wanted her to realize how much she had lost. In addition to this letter, you will find all the legal documents I signed this week, including the modification of my will, the cancellation of your paid-for supplemental health insurance plan, the notification that I have decided to exercise my rights as your mortgage guarantor due to your recent financial instability, and the termination of all benefits you were receiving from me. As she had desired, it was an 18-page letter that described in great detail everything that would suddenly alter in her life. I decided that while your life will be much simpler without me, it will also cost a lot more. I'm hoping it's worthwhile. Elena called me again on Thursday as I was loading my most valuable items into 2 luggage. Once more, I didn't respond. She made 4 more calls and left progressively more urgent messages. Her voice sounded truly distressed in the last one. "Give me a call, Mom. Something has occurred. I need your assistance. Regarding the mortgage, the bank has scheduled an urgent meeting for tomorrow. As soon as you hear this message, please give me a call." That was it. She had previously been contacted by the bank on my desire to examine the contract. The reality was starting to sink in. Marcelo arrived at my door on Friday. His unshaven stubble and thick under-eye circles gave him a desperate, tired appearance that was far different from the polished, self-assured man I knew. "Carmen," he said, in supplication. "Elena informed me of the events involving you two. Please don't do this to our family, even though I know what she said was awful and possibly unforgivable." What should I do? I pretended to be innocent as I inquired. "Due to mortgage delays, the bank stated that you are starting the procedure to take the house. Carmen, please remember that it was only a month. I promise I'll fix everything, but I had some investment issues." It was intriguing. I was a burden when Elena wanted me gone. However, I suddenly became important once more when they recognized that I was in charge of the finances that supported their opulent lifestyle. "Marcelo, your wife was very clear with me," I answered coolly. "She no longer wants to carry the burden of my presence in her life. I'm just honoring her wishes. However, Carmen, you are aware of Elena's anger. It wasn't her intention. Did she not mean it? Because when she wished me dead as a birthday present, she sounded pretty convincing. Marcelo's head dropped. He was aware that he had no defense for the unassailable. "Please," he demanded. "Give me an opportunity to make this right. I'll speak with Elena. I'll show her how mistaken she was." I said, "It's too late," and carefully shut the door. Give the twins my love. I was leaving the city where I had spent my entire life on Saturday. I strolled around the locations that had held significance for me, including the church where I married Elena's father, the park where I used to take her as a little child, and the university where I had taught for 38 years. It was my quiet farewell to a life that I had dedicated to serving others. I would finally start living for myself on Sunday. As we had arranged, Dolores knocked on my door on Sunday morning. I was energized by her conspiratorial smile and the fresh coffee she brought. "Are you prepared for your big getaway?" She winked as she asked. As I carried my 2 suitcases to the door, I answered, "More than ready." "Are the extra keys to my flat with you?" She pointed to the set of keys I had given her the previous evening and said, "Here they are. I also have all the documents you're leaving behind, including the letter for Elena." Everything had been carefully arranged by us. Dolores would wait until Tuesday to deliver the paperwork to Elena's flat, feigning concern over my disappearance after discovering my unit unoccupied. As we waited for the cab, I told her, "Remember, you have to look genuinely concerned. Inform her that I hadn't picked up the phone for 2 days, that you knocked and got no response, and that you discovered the apartment unoccupied and the letter when you used the emergency keys. Don't be concerned, Carmen. For 20 years, I taught theater as a hobby." With a cheeky grin, Dolores reassured me that this would be the performance of my life. At 6 in the morning, the cab arrived exactly on schedule. I gave my flat one last glance as the truck loaded my bags. Despite having lived there for 15 years, I was oddly without any sense of nostalgia. I felt as though I was at last escaping a prison that I had constructed on my own. "To the airport?" the driver inquired. I replied, "To the airport." And it seemed as though those 2 words signaled the start of my new life. It was a long but calm flight to Barcelona. Nobody knew where I was for the first time in decades. I couldn't be called for time money or favors. I hadn't felt this euphoric sense of liberation since before I became a mother. I recorded everything that had occurred during the previous week in my journal during the almost 12-hour flight. Everything that had led me to that point, stuck in midair between my self-sacrificing past and my self-discovering future, including every detail, feeling, and choice. I wrote, "I am doing something for myself without considering how it will benefit Elena for the first time in 43 years. It was freeing and terrified at the same time. It was Monday morning local time when I got to Barcelona. At the airport, a travel agency worker was waiting with a sign that bore my name. Miguel was a young gentleman with a strong Catalan accent who spoke Spanish. He greeted me with a sincere smile and said, "Señora Carmen, welcome to Spain. I hope you're up for a fresh experience." I answered, "More than ready." And for the first time in weeks, my smile was entirely genuine. Miguel showed me a modest but quaint furnished flat in the Gothic quarter that had been rented for a month by the agency while I made up my mind about staying there permanently. With windows facing out into a square surrounded by trees and balconies brimming with flowers on the nearby buildings, it was situated on the 3rd floor of a building that was a century old. "This contains all of the city's information," Miguel remarked, passing me a hefty folder. "Suggested dining options, cultural events, expat social circles, Catalan language courses, and medical contacts in case you need them. In case I choose to stay permanently, he had also arranged a meeting with a financial expert for Wednesday to assist with paperwork." After taking a quick break that afternoon, I took a walk without a plan, something I hadn't done in years. No obligations, no timetables, and no one looking on me to fix their issues. I marveled at the medieval architecture, the artisan shops, and the tiny cafes on every corner as I strolled through the Gothic quarters twisting narrow alleyways. I ordered a plate of churros and a café with leche when I was sitting in a square. I ate leisurely, enjoying each meal while observing the people, visitors, and pigeons. A weird sensation started to develop in my chest. It wasn't melancholy. It wasn't remorse. Peace prevailed. In my mind, I tallied the amount of money I had spent on Elena alone over the previous 5 years as I made my way back to the apartment in the late afternoon. At least 2.3 million pesos had been spent on the down payment for the house, the automobile, the twin schools, the aesthetic clinic, and all the ongoing emergencies. I could have lived well, traveled the world, and pursued goals that I had put off for decades with that money. Rather, I sacrificed everything to a kid who viewed my presence as an inconvenience, and my love as a burden. I assumed it would be 2 p.m. in Puerto Vallarta at 8 o'clock Barcelona time. Dolores would be preparing to deliver the letter that would alter everything to Elena's apartment. I waited while drinking a glass of Spanish red wine on the little balcony of my makeshift flat. My phone would start ringing in desperation in a few hours, I knew. At last, Elena would comprehend the true meaning of losing me. My phone started vibrating uncontrollably around midnight. Elena was the one. I waited for it to stop ringing. Then it rang once more, and once more, and once more. I responded after 5 tries. "Mom," she sobbed, choking her voice as she did so. "Where are you? Dolores brought a note from you to the house." "You vanished," she said. "What's happening? Is this some sort of madness?" I gently said, "Hello, Elena," as I looked at the old city's lights. "Have you read the correspondence?" "Yes, I did read it. Are you insane? How could you harm us like this? You're where—" "I'm right where I should be, a long way from you, exactly as you desired. I didn't mean it, though. I truly didn't want you to leave. All I felt was anger. I'm frustrated. It was there." Elena's typical strategy is to downplay the harm she did and attempt to make me feel bad for responding to her brutality. "Did you not mean it?" I inquired. "Because when you stated that your greatest birthday desire was for me to pass away, you seemed quite credible. It was simply, I was under stress. Marcelo's investment was a loss. The children are struggling in school. The clinic is struggling. It wasn't right of me to vent on you." "You're correct. You ought not to have. However, once something is spoken, it cannot be undone. But please, Mom, return. You are necessary to us. I am in need of you." How fascinating. She needed me now. Now she had read the letter that listed all the money she had lost. She was aware that she might lose the house now. She now realized that she would need to find someone to watch the twins when she wanted to go out and pay for her own supplemental health insurance. "Are you in need of my money or of me?" I asked directly. The other end was silent for a long time. Finally, she muttered, "I need you." Her voice, however, lacked conviction. "I lived for you, Elena, for 43 years. I gave up opportunities, money, time, and goals. And you told me you wished I were dead when I finally wanted to be loved and appreciated. My heart will never be able to heal from the hurt those comments caused." "Mom, I really apologize. Indeed I am." "Sorry is insufficient, Elena. The harm has been done. And what do you know? Given that it ultimately opened my eyes and made me understand, I've been living my entire life in the wrong way that might have been the nicest thing you could have said to me." "What are you saying?" "I mean, it's great that I'm living for myself for the first time in decades." "Mom, where are you?" Elena begged, her voice distorted by sobs. "Please tell me." "Grandma is what the twins are requesting. They don't comprehend your absence. It was amazing how my grandchildren started to miss me when I was no longer around. It was just expected of me to take care of them, so I canceled my intentions to do. So got them pricey presents and brought them to the park while Elena went shopping. However, my absence was felt now that I was gone. I looked at the sky over Barcelona and said, "The kids will be fine. They are strong. They will discover that deeds have repercussions and that cruel remarks have the power to permanently ruin relationships. But please, Mom, you can't just vanish like this. How will we know if you get sick or something else happens to you?" She was now concerned about my health. How practical. "Elena, I've been hospitalized twice in the past 3 years due to high blood pressure incidents. How many times have you come to see me?" "Not a single one. You always had more essential things to accomplish." With feeble protest, she said, "That's not true. It's accurate. I called you from the emergency room the first time. You claimed to have a party at a friend's house, therefore you were unable to attend. On the second occasion, you were celebrating Marcelo's birthday." She remembered both incidents precisely as evidenced by the stillness on the other end. She whispered, I thought it wasn't serious." "Obviously, because you never put my health first, however my checks were." Elena yelled, "It's not about the money. It concerns you. Mom, I miss you." "Do you miss having someone there to help you with your difficulties at all times? Or do you miss me?" I didn't wait for a response before hanging up. The phone rang once again, but I turned it off entirely this time. To enjoy my first night of freedom in a foreign nation, I needed serenity. The days that followed were a never-ending quest to learn more about Barcelona and myself. While I was living for Elena, several aspects of my personality interests and goals had been dormant for decades. One by one, they were now waking up like flowers following a protracted drought. I fell in love with Gothic architecture and could look at the Barcelona cathedral's features for hours. I discovered that I was naturally gifted in languages and that Catalan, which is comparable to Spanish, wasn't as hard as I had thought. I had been teaching mathematics for years, but I hadn't done it for fun in a long time until I found my love for it. I met with the Spanish financial advisor on Wednesday. Mr. Ferrer, an elderly gentleman, assisted me in comprehending all of my choices for obtaining permanent residence in Spain. "You can live comfortably here for many years with your Mexican pension and your current savings," he explained. "Barcelona offers outstanding quality of life, and Spain offers great health plans for foreign retirees." I talked honestly about my money for the first time in years, not worrying about setting aside cash for Elena's unexpected expenses. Determining my spending only by my own wants and preferences felt freeing. Mr. Ferrer went on, "You can also invest a portion of your savings here in Spain. The profits are secure and consistent. If you make smart investments, your assets could rise dramatically in 5 years. Boost my resources. How many times had I been able to do that? However, I always favored using the funds to indulge my daughter's caprices." "Do I need to know anything else?" I inquired. The advisor added, smiling sympathetically, "We have a lot of clients in situations like yours. Older folks who arrived in Spain in search of a fresh start following difficult familial connections. You're not going through this alone." That gave me great comfort. It wasn't just me. Other mothers had also been duped and abandoned by unappreciative kids. A large group of people had put their personal pleasure ahead of their family's harmful demands. I joined a senior expat walking group on Friday. 12 of us, ranging in age from 65 to 80, were looking for fresh experiences and excitement. While strolling in the hills around Barcelona, I struck up a discussion with a 76-year-old Italian woman named Luisa, who had come to Spain 3 years prior. "Why did you come here?" As we took in the expansive perspective of the city, she inquired. I said bluntly, "A daughter who told me that her greatest birthday wish was for me to die." Her eyes were wide as she gazed at me. "Really?" "Totally." She said that my presence in her life was an intolerable burden after paying for her home parenting, her kids practically, and giving up my retirement to meet their needs. "Oh God," Louisa whispered. "What did you do too?" "What I vanished from her life, and now I'm back." Louisa grinned appreciatively. "You have a lot of courage." I decided to cut ties with my toxic family after 7 years. I was handled like a walking ATM by my son and daughter-in-law. Louisa and I told each other our stories throughout the remainder of the stroll. After finding that her older children only called her when they needed money for their whims, new cars, or vacations, she moved to Spain. They accused her of being a selfish mother and threatened to stop her from seeing her grandkids after she established boundaries. As we walked down a forested track, she admitted that the first few months were difficult. She was overcome with guilt. She believed that a good mother must always make sacrifices for her children, and she wondered if she was truly selfish. "And what made you see things differently?" I inquired. "I came to the realization that my kids never inquired about my happiness, whether I had enough money for my personal expenses or whether I was feeling the pain of my daily sacrifices. All that mattered to them was what I could provide." "Carmen," she continued, "that is exploitation, not love." Her remarks struck a deep chord with me. I had mistaken repeated requests for true need and emotional manipulation for filial love for decades. After the walk, Louisa offered me to join a support group for older women who had taken the tough choice to put their health before their family's harmful expectations. The group met every 2 weeks. I agreed right away. For the first time in 3 days, I switched on my phone that evening. I had 32 text messages and 78 missed calls. The majority were from Elena and Marcelo, but some came from unidentified numbers, most likely pals they had enlisted in an attempt to find me. As I read the messages sequentially, I observed how my daughter's panic developed. The initial ones were sentimental. "Please return, Mom. You are necessary to us. For you, the children are crying." But with time, they grew increasingly frantic and preoccupied with money matters. "The bank called us for another meeting. They claim that you asked for a review of the guarantor contract. We cannot have the house taken away from us because of a miscommunication." The text had become combative by the 4th day. "This is absurd, Mom. Your outburst is wrecking our lives." Finally, in desperation, I said, "I called all the hospitals, the police, and your friends. Act like an adult and come back. Nobody is aware of your location. It will be my fault if something were to happen to you. Just let me know you're all right, please." It was interesting to note that Elena never truly expressed regret for wanting me dead. She never once showed genuine regret or acknowledged the harshness of what she had said. Everything centered on the harm that my absence caused to her. I chose to respond to one final message. "I'm doing great and happier than I've been in a long time. The natural results of your activities are what you are going through right now. Before it's too late, I hope this event teaches you the importance of the people in your life." The response came right away. "Please, Mom, can we make this right? I swear that I will never again utter something dreadful. Simply return." My final response was written. "Broken hearts cannot be healed by empty promises. Elena, what you said to me made it clear how you really feel about me. You can't use frantic promises to change that reality." I blocked her number and all of Marcelo's numbers after sending that message. I also stopped receiving calls from unfamiliar numbers. It was time to put an end to this chapter for good. I had another meeting with Mr. Ferrer the next week to complete the documents that would grant me Spanish permanent residence. I also started the process of selling my Puerto Vallarta apartment and made arrangements to permanently transfer my Mexican pension. "Do you really intend to make it permanent?" Mr. Ferrer inquired. "This is a really important choice. Never in my life have I been so certain of anything," I answered steadily, signing each document. "I'm making choices based on my happiness, rather than what other people want for the first time in decades. My good neighbor and accomplice Dolores called me that afternoon. She sounded thrilled when she spoke. "You won't believe it, Carmen," she remarked. "Elena arrived at my apartment in a fit of hysteria yesterday. She pleaded with me to explain that it was a horrible misunderstanding and to come back." "What did you tell her too?" "I was honest when I said that what she said was unacceptable and that I would have vanished forever if I had been you." When she realized that even the neighbors were aware of how cruel she had been to you, you should have seen her face. "Did she bring up the money issues at all?" "Yes, indeed. She said that without your assistance, they would be unable to pay their mortgage, that the bank is exerting pressure on them, that Marcelo is unable to resolve their financial problems, and that the children require school supplies that they cannot afford. In essence, when she lost everything, she understood everything I had done for them. That was precisely what I anticipated. As a person, she doesn't miss me. She misses my ability to solve problems and give financial support." "Dolores," I said, "I want you to tell people that I'm dead when they inquire about me, especially Elena, because it's kind of true. I actually passed away on her birthday because of an unappreciative daughter." "I totally get it," Dolores answered. "And you know what? It's the best form of death you could have chosen, in my opinion. After 3 weeks in Spain, my new life was beginning to take shape in ways I never would have thought possible. I signed up for 3 weekly Catalan sessions. I discovered a creative skill I was unaware I possessed when I enrolled in a watercolor painting class that met on Tuesdays and Thursdays. I became a member of an expat book group that met on Sundays. For the first time in decades, I had things on my schedule that I had selected activities that fueled my happiness and personal development, rather than duties dictated by the demands of others. The financial transformation, however, was the most unexpected. My savings weren't simply steady without Elena's incessant demands. They were increasing. For the first time, I could plan my financial future based only on my own requirements, and the investments I'd made with Mr. Ferrer were already yielding favorable returns. I was enjoying my morning coffee on my apartment's bright balcony that Wednesday in April when I got a call from an unfamiliar overseas number. Despite my hesitation, my curiosity won out. "Mrs. Aguirre Carmen," a Mexican-accented woman's voice questioned. "Yes, I am that person. Who's phoning?" "My name is Mendoza Raquel. I work as a social worker in Puerto Vallarta's Family Services Department. We got a report on your well-being, which is why I'm phoning." My blood froze. "A report? Which kind?" "Elena Aguirre, your daughter, filed a complaint alleging that you may have dementia or cognitive deterioration and that you have made risky financial and life decisions. She claims that you abruptly vanished and are currently living in dangerous circumstances overseas, perhaps, as a result of outside pressure." What I was hearing was unbelievable. In an attempt to undermine my choices and compel my return, Elena had even gone so far as to involve social services by fabricating a mental ailment. I firmly responded, "Miss Mendoza, I do not have dementia or cognitive decline. I choose to live in Spain, where I had a cozy apartment, first-rate healthcare, and wonderful mental health. The statements made by my daughter are wholly untrue." She answered, "I understand your position, Mrs. Aguirre. However, we must confirm your well-being. Would you consent to being evaluated medically and psychologically by the Mexican consulate in Spain?" I replied without hesitation. "Of course. I'm prepared to go through any evaluation to demonstrate that I'm in excellent mental health and that I made all of my decisions with complete clarity." I hung up after organizing the evaluation specifics, feeling both angry and shocked. Elena had gone too far and couldn't go back. In addition to wishing me dead, she was now attempting to undermine my credibility in order to take back control of my finances and life. My Mexican lawyer, Mr. Vargas, who had assisted me with all the legal formalities before to my departure, was the first person I called. "Carmen," he called me worriedly. "I appreciate you getting back to me. With your daughter, it has been an intriguing week. I can picture it. I spoke with social services just now. Elena is claiming that I have dementia. In addition, Mr. Vargas sighed. Additionally, she has engaged a different attorney to attempt to contest all of the legal adjustments you made prior to your departure. She is saying that when you signed them, you weren't mentally competent. Is she capable of doing that? She doesn't have a compelling legal argument, but she can try. All of our chats are captured on tape and you are lucid throughout. Furthermore, any assertion of cognitive impairment is refuted by the fact that you carefully prepared your departure and are now living freely in Spain. What else does she have to do? She claimed to be concerned for your welfare when she tried to access your financial accounts. She also attempted to halt the property claim procedure, but she had no legal justification because everything was officially recorded, and she had signed documents admitting to recent financial difficulties. Elena's determination to regain the financial advantages she had lost was astounding. Mr. Vargas, please draft a complaint accusing my daughter of slander. My reputation and legal rights may be harmed by her untrue statements regarding my mental health. It would be my pleasure, he said contentedly. I believe it's time she faced the legal repercussions of her actions after what she did. I showed up for the psychological and physical assessments at the Mexican consulate in Barcelona 2 days later. Dr. Torres, the authorized physician, was a seasoned professional who saw the situation right away. Mrs. After a comprehensive 3-hour assessment, he declared, Aguirre, not only are you in excellent mental health, but the choices you've made exhibit commendable courage and clarity. It is obvious that your daughter is attempting to take advantage of the judicial system in order to get financial advantages again. Will that be formally recorded? Yes, without a doubt. I'll provide social services with a thorough report outlining your independent and healthy life in Spain and refuting the allegations. The social worker called me the same day. Mrs. Aguirre, the consulate, has sent us the medical report. Your daughter's statements are obviously unfounded. Elena will be informed that her complaint has been found to be baseless and the case will be closed. I'm grateful, I said. Will there be an official record of this? Indeed. She will be found to have made a false complaint on the welfare of a relative, which could have legal repercussions if it is repeated. Excellent. Elena had not only failed to disprove my choices, but her fraudulent report was now officially documented. That evening, I made the decision to finally write a thorough description of my experience not for Elena, but for other women who could be experiencing such emotional abuse and manipulation at the hands of their adult children. I spent 4 hours recording all the sacrifices I had made, all the manipulation I had been subjected to, and all the actions I had taken to take back my life and my dignity. I gave the work the title, My Liberation Story at 74, When Maternal Love Turns into Self-Destruction. I forwarded it to a site I had come upon that featured accounts of elderly women who had the guts to make significant life changes. The editor responded to me with enthusiasm a week later. Carmen, your story is inspiring and powerful, she wrote. Hundreds of ladies who can really connect to your situation have left comments on our site. For our YouTube channel, would you be open to taking part in a video interview? I agreed right away. It was time to share my experience to support other women who were stuck in unhealthy family relationships. 2 weeks after it was released, the interview went viral. Similar accounts of adult offspring who took advantage of them financially and emotionally were recounted by thousands of women. The remarks were a list of suffering and acknowledgement. One mother said, My 37-year-old son lives in my house, doesn't pay rent, and despises me when I ask him to find a job. Another person said, My daughter never has time to come see me when I'm ill. She only calls when she needs money for vacations. A third admitted, I thought I was the only mother who felt used by her own children. However, the most unexpected aspect occurred a week following the publication of the interview. I instantly recognized the sender of the email I received. It was my son-in-law, Marcelo. Carmen, he wrote, I watched your YouTube interview. I must let you know that I absolutely concur with you. It is wrong how Elena treated you for years, and what she said was unforgivable. We were so reliant on your financial assistance that I never had the guts to confront her, even though I saw how she takes advantage of and manipulates you. He went on. The twins really miss you and don't understand why you don't see them. Therefore, I want you to know that. Elena informed them that they couldn't come because they were ill, but I believe kids should be informed when they're older. The email concluded, I wanted to let you know that at least one member of this family understands how much you gave up for us, even though I realize it's probably too late to apologize. I hope your new life is fulfilling. Before determining how to reply, I read the email 3 times. Lastly, I wrote, Marcelo, thank you for being honest, but it's too late to repair the harm. In addition to teaching your kids to cherish their loved ones before it's too late, I hope this experience makes you a better husband and parent. For the first time, a member of my family came out to admit the abuse I had suffered. It provided me with the sense of validation I had been lacking for years, but it didn't alter my determination to maintain my distance. In Spain, my new life was thriving in ways I could never have imagined. Real friends appreciated me for who I was not, for what I could contribute. I rediscovered my passions and interests. I was financially secure and at peace, and above all, I was dignified. My life had changed 6 months after I had arrived in Spain in a way I never would have imagined. On a bright spring morning, I got a call that would alter my life once more. Back in Mexico, it was Dolores, my close neighbor and confidant. You must hear this, Carmen, she remarked excitedly. Elena lost the house. For a moment, my heart stopped beating. I still had some concern for my grandchildren's welfare in spite of everything. What precisely happened? I inquired. Last week, the bank foreclosed on the mortgage. Marcelo was unable to get his money back. They missed 3 more installments. Additionally, the bank moved forward with the foreclosure, since you were the guarantor, and exercised your legal rights. Elena approached me in tears yesterday. And the children? I inquired. They're all right. On the opposite side of town, they took up residence in a modest flat. Although his pay is far lower than it was previously, Marcelo has finally secured a stable position with a travel agency. Elena also had to return to her job at the clinic, but this time as an employee rather than an owner. I experienced an odd spectrum of emotions. I felt a strong feeling of justice instead of glee at their suffering. Without anybody to save them, Elena and Marcelo were for the first time in their life having to deal with the actual repercussions of their acts. Dolores went on, There's something else. Elena asked me how I might get in touch with you. She claimed that she finally realizes what she lost when she lost you, and that she wants to sincerely apologize. What did you tell her too? I inquired. I mentioned that some comments cannot be taken back and that certain scars are too deep to mend. I added that you're doing well in your new life and that it would probably be better for you both if she didn't make another attempt to get in touch. Dolores was correct. I had developed an inner calm over the course of these 6 months that I wasn't prepared to jeopardize for hollow assurances from a daughter who had repeatedly demonstrated that she only valued me when she was in need. Mr. Vargas called me out of the blue that afternoon. I have some exciting news. Carmen, he added, as the guarantor, you are entitled to recoup your initial investment of 1.8 million pesos, plus accrued interest from the bank's sale of Elena's house. What is the entire amount of that 2.1 million pesos? The transfer has already been authorized by the bank. Next week, the funds will be in your Spanish account. It was amazing. In addition to making back my initial investment, I also made an extra 300,000 pesos. Money that, had I persisted in being the selfless mother, would have been gone forever. Mr. Vargas went on. There's one more thing. The sale of your Puerto Vallarta apartment has finally occurred. The net worth after commissions and expenses is 820,000 pesos. I was getting over 3 million pesos in total from assets that I had declared lost. My net worth now surpassed 5 million pesos thanks to my investments in Spain and my current savings. I was 74 and richer than I had ever been in my life. I celebrated that evening at my favorite Plaza Real restaurant. I drank to the courageous woman who had the guts to start over when it looked hopeless and ordered the best Spanish cava. I thought back on the entire trip as I ate. Devastated by the harsh words of an unappreciative daughter, I had started my journey as a broken and humiliated mother. I was now a self-sufficient lady with a solid income, real friends, and the life I had always imagined. The following day, I made the decision to write a book about my experience, something I had been thinking about for weeks. A useful manual for older women caught in harmful familial dynamics, not just my tale. I got in touch with a Spanish publisher that focused on personal development and self-help. A woman named Montserrat, the editor, was intrigued right away. "Carmen, your story touches on a subject that affects millions of women but is rarely spoken about openly," she stated during our discussion. "The widespread issue of adult children abusing their emotions must be brought to light." Over the course of the following 3 months, I wrote, "When Love Hurts: Breaking Free from Family Abuse After 70. The book included not only my personal story, but also useful advice on how to spot manipulation, establish healthy boundaries, and have the guts to put one's own health first. After being published 8 months later, the book went on to become a bestseller in a number of Latin American and European nations. Readers wrote to me in unusual numbers. I received letters from women all around the world telling me how my tale inspired them to drastically alter their own lives. Marta from Chile commented, "After reading your book, I've finally come to the realization that I'm not a bad mother for not continuing to support my 42-year-old son's reckless behavior." Teresa from Portugal commented, "Your story made it clearer to me that true love does not require self-destruction." I sold my large home after reading your book and moved into a modest apartment that I can afford on my own without the assistance of my kids. Sophia from Argentina wrote, "I sleep in peace for the first time in years." However, a year after the book's publication, I received the letter that affected me the most. It came from Paula, a young mother. "Mrs. My mother is 67 and I am 32, she wrote. She has dedicated her life to provide for my brothers and me. I discovered after reading your book that we are treating her in the same way that Elena treated you. Your tale made me realize that I was perpetuating a harmful behavior that could permanently ruin my connection with my mother. I apologized to my mother over the phone yesterday for taking her for granted for so many years. In addition, I informed her that rather than constantly relying on her to be available for my dreams, I wanted to assist her in realizing her own. I appreciate you pointing this out to me before it was too late." That letter made me cry with happiness. Other families had been spared the same devastation because of my suffering. I got a physical letter in my mailbox 2 years after I arrived in Spain. I initially had trouble identifying the handwriting on the envelope, even though it was recognizable. My heart pounded when I opened it. My 13-year-old grandchildren gave it to me. In adolescent handwriting, they wrote, "Dear Grandma Carmen, Dad told us the truth about why you left. He claimed that you chose to start a new life apart from us because of the really hurtful things Mom said. We understand why you left, and we want you to know how much we miss you. We also want you to know how proud we are of your courage. If you wish to see us, we would like to come to Spain when we are older." They included illustrations of me contentedly residing in Barcelona's streets in the letter. After reading that letter, I sobbed for an hour. Not with sadness, but with the knowledge that I had made the correct choice in defending my honor, even if it meant separating from those I cared about. I chose to reply in writing. "My favorite grandchildren," I said. The most exquisite present I've received in a long time is your words. No matter how far away we are, I will always adore you. My house and my heart will always be open to you when you're old enough to make your own choices. In the meantime, I want you to know that your grandmother is content and living a full life in a beautiful and peaceful environment. Continue to love me, but take lessons from this event as well. Words have the capacity to create or destroy. Furthermore, respect for one another, not one-sided sacrifice, is the foundation of relationships. You have my undying love. As I write the last words of my story 3 years after that awful birthday that irrevocably altered my life, I sit on the balcony of my new apartment in Barcelona, which I paid for myself, and gaze out at the Mediterranean Sea. At the age of 77, I have a net worth of more than 6 million pesos, a best-selling book that has been translated into 8 languages, close friends from around the globe, and an inner calm that I never imagined I would have again. As a birthday present, Elena asked me to vanish from her life. In the most amazing way, I fulfilled her request. She never realized that losing me would mean losing not only a mother, who loved her without conditions, but also the person who had supported her financially for decades. Elena, my first direct touch in 3 years, sent me an email last week. She wrote, "I read your book, Mom. I took you for granted my entire life, and I never realized how much I hurt you, or how much you gave up for me. I'm not pleading with you to forgive me or return. Even though it was the most difficult way to learn, I just wanted to let you know that I now understand what you were trying to teach me. You deserve all the happiness in the world, so I hope you're content in your new life." I never responded to the email. After being torched, certain bridges cannot be restored. However, I carried her words close to my heart, not as a triumph, but as a reminder that every suffering can ultimately lead to wisdom. I gave her the gift of my disappearance. My gift to myself was my new existence. And every tear, sacrifice, and agonizing moment that led me to this point was worthwhile. Because sometimes having the guts to utterly lose yourself and be reborn as the person you were always intended to be is the only way to save yourself.